Good afternoon, and thank you for inviting me to speak to you this afternoon with the Springfield Agri Conference. So Regeneration Earth has been established to act as the conduit between those companies and individuals with residual carbon emissions that they need to offset to achieve their net zero ambitions, and linking them with the farmers and landowners who, through a host of projects, can sequester carbon, help reverse biodiversity collapse, and deliver a host of other co-benefits to wider society. The light bulb moment for me was in 2015 when I started my Nuffield scholarship journey, and at the same time the Paris climate talks were taking place. A group of French scientists launched the 4 per meal initiative when they calculated that if all the world's soils increased in soil organic matter by 0.4% per year, they could sequester all anthropological CO2 emissions. A massive challenge, but nonetheless very much possible. The UK Climate Change Committee has stated that it wishes to see the first UK clusters of carbon capture and storage facilities set up by 2026, and that the cost of these will be in the region of £300 per tonne of CO2 stored. We believe that technology like this is an unnecessary waste of money, and the answers are quite simply natural. How many species will benefit from a carbon capture and store factory? And how will a carbon capture and store facility improve our soils and make food production more climate resilient? It's only a matter of 200 years since mankind has managed to extract and burn all of the carbon that Mother Nature quietly tucked away over billions of years. And it's mankind's duty now to put it back in the form of soil organic matter and sequester it into plant-based materials. At Regeneration Earth, we believe that farmers and landowners will provide the natural solutions to man-made climate change and biodiversity collapse, whilst producing safer, more wholesome, plentiful food. And as an industry, we have the ability to create a new paradigm in land management. Along with other stakeholders, we're developing a UK carbon code and a carbon exchange to ensure that UK clients have the ability to buy UK project-derived credits that deliver real removal of atmospheric CO2 and wider societal benefits. The projects that Regeneration Earth design reward farmers for a wholesale adoption of regenerative farming practices, for planting carbon harvesting crops and planting trees in both afforestation and agroforestry systems. Now, we all know that trees are magnificent, and the right tree in the right place can offer an awful lot of benefits. A 100-year oak, for instance, will store significant volumes of carbon and host many hundreds of species. However, often the wrong tree is planted, and worst of all, it's not managed properly. Plant and forget is often the mantra. The theory is excellent, but often the execution is poor. And how often does one see swathes of sticks planted with horrid plastic guards from which nothing grows? A recent example of this is near here, where a new motorway junction has been built and tens of thousands of trees have been planted. An admirable plan, but over 60% of them have now died. And this happens a lot. And the worst possible outcome when taking land out of production and turning over to woodland is if the majority of trees die. Successfully planted woodlands will deliver both diverse woodland habitats and carbon sequestration, but often not for many years. And these traditional plantations represent little return to landowners. Thus, the call for 30,000 hectares per year as part of HM government's journey to net zero is unlikely to be fulfilled without a significant change. We already know that the Woodland Carbon Guarantee Scheme is falling behind in its aspirations. And there is no better way to gain landowner engagement than by offering a decent long-term financial return. Currently, the UK imports 80% of the timber it uses. There is a desire from central government to displace much of this imported timber and develop a new UK-based industry. Very few of the trees that are planted in new woodland creation schemes will ever produce timber to fulfil demand. That is why we advocate at Regeneration Earth the use of Paulonia. Paulonia is an ancient species of tree that originates from Asia. It was introduced in the UK in the mid-1800s, roughly at the same time as many softwood tree species that we see in commercial plantations now. The Paulonia is one of the fastest growing trees in the world, and one of only a handful with a C4 metabolism. It is often misunderstood because many believe it to be invasive, but the hybrids we use are sterile clones and thus cannot replicate. Some parties are a little sniffy about the use of Paulownia, but we believe that to deny its use is to deny a very credible solution to climate change. The Paulownia, once 3 years old, will display huge blooms of flowers for approximately six weeks in May-June time, providing food for insects, thus the entire food web. And it has the potential to establish a new UK honey production industry. We're working with different clients with different aims. Some wish to plant fast-growing trees to help draw nutrients from groundwater, some for soil stabilisation, timber production and biodiversity net gain. And a well thought out plantation can deliver all of these benefits. We believe that we need to move away from silo, single problem, single solution type thinking. And we design projects that deliver multiple benefits, including a financial gain for the landowner at the outset. We're designing a wetland project that has a primary aim, its principal aim is for mitigating phosphate in the Stour catchment. But we're reserving the carbon rights and the biodiversity rights to sell to another client. This has made the permanent loss of this land for production worthwhile, as it means we're able to deliver its goals, its initial goal, but also maintain a long-term income. Going back to Paulownia, so Paulownia grows to a size of a 40-year oak in about 8 to 10 years, sequestering a vast amount of CO2 into timber, roots and leaves. And once harvested, the tree grows back again, restarting the cycle of rapid growth, sequestering significant carbon and producing homegrown, high-quality timber. Paulownia will have produced 3 to 4 harvests in the time it takes a traditional softwood plantation to mature. The timber is a high-quality hardwood when it has many uses. It has an unrivaled strength to weight ratio and is often referred to as the aluminium of the timber world. Paulownia timber is used to make a large range of products, from specialist items such as surfboards and bike frames, yes, I really did say bike frames, as well as musical instruments, to more mainstream joinery and construction materials. Our ambition is to build wooden homes to a high specification with the wood grown on UK farms, embedding that carbon into buildings for generations. We are not alone in that ambition. Cambridge University School of Architecture are designing timber skyscrapers, and Google are designing entire timber cities. Both see the potential of timber to embed carbon into buildings for generations. They will need plentiful supplies of timber grown in renewable systems, and Regeneration Earth, along with land managers, will provide the solutions. We do not see this tree species as a replacement to new woodland plantations, but we do see it as part of the mix, as a new crop within agroforestry systems and afforestation on fertile land. We're planning a number of agroforestry systems where we plant Paulownia alongside local tree species to help maximise the biodiversity benefits. In 10 years from planting, you get the first harvest, and then every 8 years after that, delivering continual long-term income and continual carbon sequestration at levels that will simply not be matched by traditional woodland plantations. To compare woodland creation with Paulownia plantations, one of my colleagues uses an interesting analogy, comparing the climate emergency we find ourselves in to a house fire. If your house was on fire, which hose would you choose to use to put it out? The small garden hose or the massive fire hoses employed by the fire brigade that can douse the flame in minutes? The answer is, of course, you'd use both. And at a time when we're faced with a climate emergency, we should use every tool at our disposal. Thank you very much.